Major Brewer, are you ready to go tonight?
Yes, sir. And I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Bill, for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. This is going to be exciting. I'd ask everybody, if you could, to make sure that you have everything on mute as we start tonight. And in addition to that, we will be accepting chat questions. So any questions that you may have, please make sure you put them to chat. I have to start with a little bit of an introduction, because as we go through this, it is now fall 2020. And I believe, if I think back in my time at Embry-Riddle, it was probably fall of 2000 that Michael Brewer was filling out his application to attend Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And here we are 20 years later. I may go back to that particular one, but I believe it was fall 2020.
That's right.
Fall 2000. And then you were accepted on February 15th, 2001. And you and I both know that because you sent me your acceptance letter not too long ago. And I thought it was a great decision. We didn't even have to, so we looked at this and said, I think this person's going to be someone special. Little did we know back then that you would be Thorny, Thunderbird #3, and that you would be presenting today. So I just say your controls right now. Thank you so much for being here, Major Brewer.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for coming in and saying hello. Yeah, I'm a 2005 Prescott graduate. Bill, even before that, I was at the camp, the summer camp, 2 years prior to that when I was a sophomore. So it goes way back when Prescott campus was, all you guys can appreciate this, when the Prescott campus was Camp Riddle, before they started erecting all these big, beautiful buildings that are out there. But yeah, so my path to the Thunderbirds is a little bit non-standard, but we'll start you off with a little video here. So that's kind of our initial hype video. And Bill, like I said, my path to the Thunderbirds is a little bit non-standard, but I'm truly blessed and lucky to be here, to be able to do what I do every single day. Not just as a pilot, and not just as a Thunderbird, but a military officer, being able to be so entrenched into aviation since I was a little boy, really as a childhood dream come true. I grew up in Chicago, the suburbs of Chicago, in a town called LaGrange, Illinois. And in the 90s, I was born in 83. So in the 90s, something was really big, phenomenal going on in Chicago. And that was the Bulls, right? And I wanted nothing to be more than Michael Jordan, the man himself. And I practiced, I shot hoops all the time. My mom even sent me to a summer basketball camp one time at the YMCA. And it was phenomenal, and I loved it. But there was a small problem, and part of that problem is I was not naturally good at basketball. So I think my mom also realized that at the same time. But one of the things that she did, and for the parents who are there, who are listening right now, one of the best things that my parents did for me was they took me as a child, as a young child, to see what other people did. So not only necessarily what a teacher did or the firefighter did. My mom even showed me what like lawyers do and that sort of thing. Just exposed me to a whole bunch of different professions. And one of the professions was being a pilot. My dad traveled a lot for his work, and I'll never forget it. I was about 8 to 9 years old, and he was on a work trip in Shreveport, Louisiana. And I boarded a United Airlines Boeing 727, still one of my favorite airplanes out there today. And when we landed in Shreveport, my mom took me up to the front and showed me all the controls, and the pilot sat me down in the seat. And I just remember being inundated with everything that's around. And those of you who have flown, you kind of know that feeling that I'm talking about. I sit there and I saw all the switches and buttons and levers and the yoke, and you just think, wow, this machine flies. And from that point on, I was hooked. When I left that cockpit, I said, Mom, I want to be a pilot. And she was like, okay, right. Yeah. You wanted to be Michael Jordan and now you want to be a pilot. I get it. Right. That sort of thing. And, your parents can always buy you a basketball hoop and you can go shoot hoops. Learning to fly is a whole different ball game. So that's kind of the position that we were in. But I was really lucky when I was young. My parents took me to the local flight school. And for my birthday a year later, I took all the money that was given to me for my birthday from my aunts and uncles and all that sort of thing. And I got myself an hour flight lesson. They took me to get a 1 hour flight lesson. And then shortly followed after that, I did a Young Eagles, which was phenomenal. And from that point on, I was just hooked. So, and that flight, by the way, I think was about $60 that hour wet in a 172. So can't get that anymore, unfortunately. But ever since then, I was just hooked from day one. And I mowed a whole lot of lawns. I dog sat, watched houses, and did everything I possibly could to continually feed what turned into just a obsession, if you will, just wanting to continue to fly over and over and over and over again. And finally, before I knew it, when I was 16 years old, I had enough hours to solo, so I soloed. And when I was 17, I was able to get my license, which was phenomenal because I asked my girlfriend at the time to prom, via airplane, which was kind of unique. Her parents didn't like that very much. But it was a cool opportunity for me to do. And then that's where the decision for school came in. What did I want to do? I was also very active in gymnastics, and during that time, I looked at schools for gymnastics and that sort of thing. But that really wasn't where my passion was. My passion was in aviation. So a couple schools came up, and naturally from the Midwest, Southern Illinois University came up, Purdue came up, Western Michigan came up, and all the, University of North Dakota, all the major aviation schools came up. Florida Institute of Technology was one of them. And I went ahead and I applied to all those schools. And one of the schools that, before I even started applying though, Embry-Riddle was the one that kind of showed up everywhere. And one of the reasons was when I told my high school counselor that I wanted to fly airplanes, he really didn't know much about that because that wasn't really a very common thing at my school. And what he said was, hang on a second, pulled open a drawer, and there was in fact, I still have it. I should have dug it up. Was a pamphlet from Embry-Riddle with a VHS tape. And that's the video that I watched, and I said, I really like that. That's really cool. And that kind of started my journey. And then when I was a sophomore, I was able to do a junior, I was able to do the camp at the Prescott campus. And then it just kind of all snowballed. And so I found myself at the Prescott campus. And I loved every minute of it. I was on the flight team there. And, obviously I did my trips down to ASU and got to see all of Arizona. I got to fly all over Arizona. And then while I was at the school, met some phenomenal friends who I still talk with today. In fact, Chris is on here somewhere. He was texting me earlier today. He's on this call, and he was one of my teammates on the flight team while I was competing there. When I left the school, I did the standard track of, hey, I wanted to fly commercially. And that's really where my passion was, because I knew nothing about the military. I have no former military in my background. My parents aren't military or anything like that, and I knew nothing about it. And I just wanted to be a commercial airline pilot. So that's what I really pursued very heavily. When I left the school, I was a flight instructor over at North Air for a short period of time, and then I started flying Part 135 bank mail. Also during that time, when I was a freshman, was 2001. So September 11th, obviously, was a huge day in the country's history. To include how much it rocked the aviation industry many of you know how much it really rocked the aviation industry. My professors who were former airline pilots had major repercussions, even though they've already retired. But yes, it just rocked the entire aviation industry. To include the path that I wanted to take at the time, Chicago Express was a huge, not huge, but a blossoming regional carrier that I really wanted to work for, being from Chicago. Some of the other ones were, you can name them all, and those were the ones that I was targeting. And then when I graduated in 2005, the landscape of aviation was completely different than when I entered in 2001, and many of you can attest to that. So I went from flight instructing to flying bank mail, and part of the bank mail process was high priority packaging, and that was all Part 135 operations, which was really a lot of fun. And I was able to do that for about 6 months before I got hired by Mesa Airlines. And while I was at Mesa Airlines, I was lucky enough to fly the Dash 8, had a phenomenal group of folks that I flew with. And then when the recession hit in about 2008, I was down in, I got pushed back to the right seat and got to fly the CRJ for a little while. During that time, there's something that happens to you when you're in your 20s, So up until you're in the early 20s, everything around you is about you. And rightfully so, right? You go to school, you study, you work your tail off to do something you really want to do. Everything in your universe is centered around you. In your mid 20s, at the time I was dating, I was engaged, I got married when I was 25. During that time, my life stopped becoming about me and became more about us and everything else around me. And as my aperture started opening up, a lot of this was also because of the countless hours I sat reading, USA Today. I felt very helpless about things that were going on in the world that I felt I could do more to be a part of. So I started looking in the National Guard and the reserves to kind of supplement the airline thing. I was also flying in a lot of jump seats at the time. And I remember talking to some of the folks who were retired military pilots, and they were talking about all these cool war stories they had. And I said, you know what? I should maybe try something like that. That would be really neat. That would probably be very fulfilling. Well, the reserves and the Guard path took me to active duty because I was talking to my wife and I said, you know what, if we do this, let's just go head first. Let's do the whole kit and caboodle. So we went active duty, took a military leave of absence from the airline. And I went in with the intent, believe it or not, Bill, of wanting to fly KC-10s, right? And you can imagine, airline pilot, went to Embry-Riddle, did the whole crewed airplane type thing. My intent was, hey, I can also use this to be advantageous because if I fly KC-10s, FedEx will hire me. Or if I go fly C-17s, then I have a very good chance of getting hired on by, anybody who flies heavy aircraft. So I was thinking, that'd be a natural progression there as well. And it's also the only world that I knew. But when I went to undergraduate pilot training, something happened. We flew formation at the very last phase. Every single pilot does it. We fly formation as the final phase in the T6. And then from there, you track select. So you either go to heavy aircraft, which is where the majority of the class goes, and about 6 folks from the class of about 25 will go fly T-38s. So the T-1, which is essentially a beach jet, or the T-38, which takes you into fighters and bombers. And at that point, I had a choice to make. Do I want to go to heavy aircraft and try to fly heavy aircraft, or do I want to fly fighters and do the formation thing? Because that was very interesting to me. And I thought I was very nervous about going to fighters because it was a world that I didn't know, and I knew the heavy world very well. And again, I looked at my wife, and we're always in for adventures, and we said, you know what, we have to try it. The opportunity's there. We have to try it. There's all these doors that are open, and I'm not going to try to close a door intentionally without at least looking behind the curtain a little bit. So that got me to the end of pilot training. And at that point, I had to put together a dream sheet of what aircraft I wanted to fly. So I kind of got the best of both worlds because I looked at all the fighter aircraft that are out there. And there's the F-15E Strike Eagle. Now, the Strike Eagle is a two-person aircraft, right? You have the pilot in the front seat and the wizard in the back seat. So I got the best of both worlds. I got a crew environment, I got a fighter aircraft, and I got two engines, which was very appealing to me as well. So I got to do the best of both worlds, which was phenomenal. And you work your way up from zero all the way to instructor and airline, in the airlines, back to going to fly the Diamond Katana again and working your way from zero all the way up through, wingman, instructor, pilot, flight lead in the military world as well. So I had the unique opportunity of seeing both training systems, both from the civilian side of the house and the military side of the house in its entirety, from zero all the way through instructor. When I was a kid in Chicago, the Chicago Air and Water Show every year featured the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds every other year. And it just was always in the back of my mind. And about 4 years ago, I saw the hiring notice come out through email saying, hey, this is the minimum requirements if you wanted to apply for the Thunderbirds. And I always kind of sat in the back of my mind. It was never a target of mine. I always thought it'd be very cool, but never in my wildest dreams did I think that would be something that I would ever do. And when I realized, as I kind of went through all the tick marks of all the qualifications that are required, I realized that lo and behold, I meet all of the qualifications. And I thought, again, that's another door that's possible, that might be open. And again, my wife and I talked about it. I said, man, wouldn't it be awesome if we could do this thing? And it's right in my wheelhouse. I love going out. I love talking to schools. I love talking to children and inspiring them because my love of aviation really has driven my decision-making through my entire life. And now, I'm a father of three, soon to be four. My entire family, we all make these decisions together, and we're an aviation family. So now I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed to fly as Thunderbird 3 on the team. I'm on my second year on the team. And because of COVID, we get the third year bonus tour out of the deal. And because of that, there's been quite a bit of phenomenal things we've been doing within the team to make the demonstration amazing and awesome. So I'll be here for another year. I'm not sure where we're going to go after this, but we're loving the ride, and it's been amazing. So I'm very happy to be here, Bill.
Well, very good. Thorny, if I can call you Thorny.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. We've known each other a long time, and you've picked the perfect aircraft. You've picked, it sounds like, the perfect career. But when you were young, it sounds like you really picked the perfect wife. Do you want to share, because you couldn't be where you are without the perfect wife? Do you want to share a little bit on the personal side?
Absolutely. I met my wife in Prescott, actually. So she's from Southern California, and she was actually attending Yavapai College while I was out there. So she grew up in California, moved out to Arizona, went to Yavapai College at the time. And we met, of all places, at the YMCA. I was a gymnastics coach at the YMCA, trying to work my way through, I think, the multi-engine course out there. And she was the girls' gymnastics coach, and I was the guys' gymnastics coach. And when we met, we knew if we were to stay together in this aviation world, how crazy this industry can be, right? We know if there's anything that aviation promises, it's instability. There's a company that, one of the companies I could have sworn that I was going to work and retire with ATA Airlines in Chicago. When I graduated in 2005, I said, I'm going to work for ATA Airlines. I'm going to fly the 757 because that's an amazing airplane, and we're going to be in Chicago. And we are the opposite side of the world of that plan right now. So yeah, my wife has been phenomenal. Katie has taken every opportunity that's been presented and looked at it through the lens of, this is going to be an amazing thing for us to see. And if we don't like it, it's temporary. And it turns out that everything we've done, we've made the decisions together and we've loved to do. And I will say, hands down, for the students that are out there, when you meet the person and you meet the one, you want to make sure that you guys are supportive of each other and all that sort of stuff. But I'll tell you what, when you can make decisions together as a team, because future decisions, whether or not Thorny stays in the Air Force or not, or whether or not we do 20 years, or whether or not we go back to the airlines, we make together as a team. And if you can't make those decisions together as a team, then you shouldn't be making that decision. And because of that, I've had a phenomenally supportive wife, a phenomenally supportive family, and we've had the most amazing roller coaster ride of a career that there could be. So yeah, there's been this. It's a phenomenal thing when the relationship works out very well.
Well, very good. And when Thorny number 4 shows up, what's the date on Thorny number 4?
Oh, about 2 weeks from now.
So I'm just glad that's not happening right now. So I know you had to really look at the clock and look at the calendar when we made these arrangements. So thank you very much.
Of course.
Can you tell us a little bit, your time as a student? You also were on the flight team, the Golden Eagles flight team. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, we won a couple times, which was always a good feeling. I've got my landings competition plaque sitting there behind me in my ring. But the team. I loved being on the team. The great thing is that the school has phenomenal extracurricular activities that will fit a student somewhere at some point in time. And a lot of people say, oh, you didn't go through ROTC, because that would be the natural thought process. If you're in the military, you must have gone through ROTC. And ROTC at Riddle is a huge program, a phenomenal program. So that's the first thing everybody thinks. And the answer was no, because at the time, I'm not sure how it is now, but ROTC and flight team didn't really mesh together because both demanded so much of your time. So it was very difficult to do both programs at the same time. The team was phenomenal because I was able to learn and really, I call it geeking out, right? I was really able to geek out and nerd out on the intricacies of aviation, and the things that I learned, the work ethic that I learned, is invaluable. And to top it all off, the friendships that I have because of that were great. So whether or not it's ROTC or the flight team or anything like that, the extracurricular activities that you do, not only in college, but in high school, really help define the decisions that you make in the future, because it really, it's the whole person concept, So I got to see some, we were flying aircraft Cessnas across the country for competitions, in college, which is, that's not normal, right, for a college student to do. So being able to do stuff like that was a fantastic experience. And then competing, obviously, I'm a fairly competitive person. A lot of us are type A personalities, and that kind of helped harness that competitive spirit in a positive way and channel it in a very positive way.
Very good. Thank you. So here's a question for you. This has been a real interesting year for you. Obviously, normally it's a 2-year cycle for Thunderbird pilots, and now you're into a 3-year cycle. But can you talk about the standard week of a Thunderbird pilot in a normal setting, and then maybe elaborate some more on this year with COVID and how it's transitioned, what you've done with the Blue Angels, because now you did flying formation with Blue Angels, and how that all takes place. So can you first talk about your standard week and then how COVID has treated that standard week as well, please?
Yeah, it's completely different. It's a whole different team. Last year versus this year is a completely polarized, different experience. So a typical year, once the training season is over, we have an air show every single weekend. So we do over 30 air shows per season, so per year, and which equates to roughly 60 to 70 actual performances and an extra 30 or so practice performances at different locations. So we are extraordinarily busy during that time. So what we typically do is, I'll start on Thursday. So Thursday, let's say I was doing the Chicago show. We'd fly out on Thursday to Chicago. Once we showed up on Thursday, we would do what's called a site survey. And essentially we look over and we see, okay, these are the factors, the buildings, whatever it happens to be. And we get ourselves associated with the TFR that's around there, which is a 5-mile ring centered on show center. So we check out where everything is and get ourselves acquainted with the show site. And then that evening, usually we end up at a public relations event of some sort put on by the show site. The next Friday morning, we go to do school visits. And then when it's not school season, we do hospital visits, and we'll do other community outreach events that are usually specific to the show site. And then that afternoon, Friday afternoon, we will do a practice, a full show practice, a full dress rehearsal with everything. And then we also invite special guests out. So a lot of times we'll bring out like St. Jude's Hospital, or we'll bring out special needs folks to come in. They get a private showing. So folks who wouldn't normally be able to go see an air show, like Make-A-Wish Foundation folks and that sort of stuff, we bring them out to give them a private showing on the practice day so that they don't have to battle the crowds and all that on the actual show day. And then Saturday morning, we try to reserve the morning portion just for us. So we try to leave that untouched. A lot of us would go do, group workouts or go for runs and that sort of thing. I personally like to play golf, so we go try to hit the sticks a little bit. And then Saturday we'll do a full show. And then Sunday would be another full show, same sort of schedule. Monday we'll leave for home, and then once we get back in Vegas, we do a bunch of just office work that's required. Tuesday is another office work day, and then a full practice, and then Wednesday's our day off. And then Thursday we go out to the next show site and do it all over again. So it's just that cycle over and over and over again. And occasionally we'll get 2-week trips in there or a 3-week trip in there if it makes sense. But that's our typical schedule. Now during the practice season, we fly typically two times a day, 5 days a week. So about 10 flights a day or 10 flights a week in our normal practice season. We fly approximately 100 flights from the time we start the team to the time we do our first show to essentially qualify ourselves for that first show. So that's the pre-COVID. Post-COVID it's a perpetual practice season that seems like with a lot of hiccups and gotchas. So this year's been very unique for everybody here. It's been an exceptional year in the sense that nothing's the same, nothing is normal. So obviously it started out with the entire team essentially being stood down. We're not going to do air shows. We're going to wait and see what's going on. That first air show coincided with the outbreak of COVID. And then shortly thereafter, we were trying to find ways that we can utilize our talents, continue to stay proficient, and in a positive way. And that's where the flyovers came in. So we did the America Strong flyovers. We probably flew over many of your cities. And we flew essentially coast to coast doing flyovers all over the United States. And that's where we kind of started holding hands with the Blue Angels. We had a phenomenal practice season with Blue Angels early on. And because of the relationships that we built, we were able to start flying with them for a lot of these America Strong flyovers. Really, it was unprecedented because normally the two teams don't perform together. We try to separate ourselves because you don't want to draw two separate crowds in a small locality. So they usually perform somewhere very far from where we are performing. And this year, since we didn't have that restriction and the shows that we normally do, we were able to spend a whole lot of time together. In fact, to the point where now I talk to my counterpart. I'm the lead instructor pilot on the team right now for the Thunderbirds. I talk to the lead instructor for the Blue Angels probably every other week or so. And we're constantly exchanging ideas. And right now, we are taking a very deep dive into our operations. We're applying a lot of things, and this will go to something I'll talk about a little bit later, but this really, we're able to take all of the new ideas that have come out as far as learning and technologies and ways, adult learning, for example, the way pilots are learning, the way the civilian world has kind of changed in the last couple of years. I remember when I left Riddle Prescott, I considered myself a very proficient instructor, and my claim was I was an expert at the Garmin 430 and the 530. Right, I knew that thing like the back of my hand. That is old news. There's been how many different variants of glass cockpit since then that I have absolutely no idea how to work, right? So those changes are something that we are looking at, not necessarily in avionics, but the techniques in training, things that have been done in the civilian world for the last decade is finally something that we are able to start wrapping our hands around now to really make make the best out of every flight hour that we possibly can to modernize our techniques. And that's just one of the things that we're trying to do now. And we're doing that really in unison with the Blue Angels as well, because they are also they're taking this extra year to really, like a lot of businesses that are out there, they're taking this extra year to really do a deep dive into their operations and make their operations as lean and as powerful as possible. And that's exactly what we're doing with this year. Oh, I think I lost you, Bill. There we go.
Thank you. You have flown a lot of aircraft. So can you tell me the excitement? Do you still feel the excitement from your first solo? Do you remember your first solo? Do you still have the t-shirt?
Oh, yeah.
And is there another time that replicates that excitement?
Oh, that's a great question. So my first solo was at Kerner Kankakee in just south of Chicago on a grass strip. And I will never forget it. You know, I can still feel the moment of turning like downwind to base and just knowing exactly the sights that I was seeing and what I was thinking at that time. It's such a huge impression on you. And it's so hard to beat that moment. A moment that came really close was the first student that I soloed as an instructor, because I was terrified. You know, the other instructors that are on here can probably back me up on this one. When I soloed that student and I was standing at the end of 2-1 right in Prescott, Arizona, with a two-way radio in my hand, you know, transceiver in my hand, watching the student that I taught and nobody else taught come in for his first landing, I was petrified. But I can look back at that point, and that was probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done as a pilot in my career, was watching that student successfully do a touch and go, turn around and do it again multiple times. And that was probably one of my more prouder moments as a pilot, was actually soloing my very first student, because it was a feeling that you'll never forget, similar to your first solo. In fact, my very first paycheck, I should go grab it off my wall for you guys. My very first paycheck that I ever got flying an airplane was like $15.74. The first day that I went from paying money to fly an airplane to the day I finally got paid money to fly an airplane, I have that check that I never cashed. I've thought about it a couple of times, but I've never cashed it, sitting on my wall right now in a frame that was about $50. So, you know, I will never forget those are the small moments in aviation that have a lasting impression and impact on me as a pilot. Obviously, all the things I do now as a Thunderbird are phenomenal. I truly enjoy it. And it's the best part about being a Thunderbird. People are like, oh, it's got to be the flying and all that. No, don't get me wrong. The flying is phenomenal and a whole lot of fun. And it's definitely something where I have to pinch myself and say, I can't believe I do this for a job. But really, it's the interactions and going out, representing the United States Air Force, representing the profession of aviation is probably the best part of my job, hands down. And being able to go talk to high school students, you know, elementary school students, and watch the light bulb come on, the same light bulb that I remember, you know, going off when I was standing on the flight deck of that 727, to watch that happen for another person is probably one of the most rewarding experiences as a person that I could possibly have. So there isn't a single moment that gets you back to like that first initial solo feeling. But there's definitely moments within my career that make you know, being a pilot in the aviation profession, and not necessarily a pilot, but anybody who works in the aviation for the profession, for the most part, we don't do it because it brings you fame, or you don't do it because it makes you a powerful person or the CEO of something. And Lord knows most of us don't do it for the money. You know, we do it because we love it. So the aviation industry is jam-packed with people who truly love and enjoy what they do. So being able to immerse yourself in that environment is the best job that I could ever have. And the fact that you get paid for it is, you know, icing on the cake. You know, I still remember, you know, mowing those lawns, pushing the mower around in the middle of a Chicago summer, you know, trying to make $5 here and $10 here so I can go pay, you know, $50 an hour for a 152. So, you know, now when a paycheck shows up every other week, it's, you know, you have to pinch yourself, say, I can't believe this is my job and this is my life. So, yeah. It's
very good. So if you were to step back in time and you look at 2005, and obviously you've made a lot of changes, but if you were a student or if you were to talk to a, let's say a freshman today, so there's a freshman in college today, and they were pursuing an aviation career or an engineering career, what would be the advice that you would give them?
Be the best you possibly can be. And what I mean by that is, don't waste a moment. So if you are a student right now, you have resources allocated to you at your fingertips that you may never have the opportunity to get again in your life. For me to access some of these resources, I reach back through the alumni network, or, I'm currently in my master's degree to access some of these resources, so the people you are around right now are the people that you will spend the rest of your career with, because you will bump into them over and over and over again. The people I went to school with, be it in engineering, I'm thinking of Double E. I don't know if he's on here, but he's out there. He was an electrical engineer. We called him Double E. He was not a pilot. He was so incredibly passionate about aviation, and he's out there right now doing the JOB, and I have my pilot friends that I run into everywhere. So my advice to you right now as a current student would be, don't waste a moment of the time that you have, and be the very best you can be. So don't get an A because it's an A, but get an A in the class because you truly want to know the content that you're learning, not just rote memorization, but actually truly understand the content that you're learning. And the best way I could frame this is, things have changed. The FAR aim has changed in the last 20 years, and from when I first started reading it. Regulations have changed, medical standards have changed, but that doesn't matter. The baseline knowledge and the skill of how to learn is what you're learning right now. Even though the content may change from time to time, the core of it is not going to change. So as long as you can have a solid foundation of which to build upon, you will have the ability to utilize it in the future. Another phenomenal example of that is, you don't know what opportunities are going to be out there in your future. You have no idea. I had no idea when I graduated Embry-Riddle that I would be in the military, let alone be sitting here talking to you as Thunderbird 3. No idea. But the preparation that I had to get me to this point allowed me two things. And the first one is, it allowed me first to see when the opportunity was there. Because you're not going to be able to take advantage of an opportunity unless you see the opportunity that's there. That's different from creating opportunities. You can create opportunities as well, but you need to be able to see an opportunity when it's presented to you. That's one. Two, you need to have the skill set to be able to capitalize on the opportunity at the time that it's presented to you. So you may, right after college, see a whole lot of opportunities that are available to you that you're not quite qualified for yet, right? So think of it as, you see opportunities in the aviation world where you don't have enough hours or something like that. That's fine. That's not a big deal. You will. Don't worry about it. But be able to see the opportunities that are there and take advantage of the ones that you're qualified for. So the best thing you can possibly do is put as many tools in your bag of tricks right now from the young age that you possibly can, so that you can use them in the future when the time comes and you're called to use them. That's the advice that I can give you.
Wow, fantastic advice. And we hear that time and time and time again, but you said it so well. If there was a course or a minor that you wish that you had taken, is there a minor or a different course that you wish that you had taken in your time period?
Oh, all of them. Honestly, yeah. I mean, I was a weather minor while I was an undergraduate student. The other one that I wish I could have minored in was safety. Both of them, both would serve you well. I don't think it's necessarily, again, it's not necessarily what you minor in. I fly with pilots on this team who have degrees and nothing to do with aviation. So it's not necessarily what you major in. It's what you learn and how you learn to learn in the major that you're doing. So for example, my minor was in weather. I actually do a whole lot more in aviation having to do with safety than I do with weather. Although I've used my weather minor multiple times, I've drawn back on the knowledge that I had from my weather classes. Even just now, we're looking at new portable aviation weather systems like an AWOS or an ASOS, but in a portable manner that we can use at our show center. And I'm drawing upon the knowledge that I had during my weather minor to talk to weather agencies that are out there. And I'm really drawing on some of that knowledge, probably some of it for the first time that I've thought about in many years. But I've also drawn on a lot in the safety sector as well. Now, my minor is not necessarily in safety, but I had the tools and resources to know where I had to go and what I knew and what I didn't know. So a lot of it is not necessarily knowing the content of what the minor is, but just the fact that you know that it's out there and the basic framework of it it will pay dividends.
Perfect. And I will ask everybody, if you have a question you might want to ask, feel free to put it in chat right now. We do have a question that I'd like to ask you. I see it in chat. And kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but your experience as a commercial pilot. I mean, your route was completely different than so many of these routes of a Thunderbird pilot. So did your experience as a commercial pilot help you in the military? And how would you do that comparison? Commercial pilot to military, military pilot to commercial. Could you share that?
I get asked that question all the time. I would not do it any other way. My path is unique. I know that. And I loved every minute of it. I still love every minute of it. There are some drawbacks in the path that I took, though. So one drawback is I'm a 2005 graduate. Well, my counterparts right now in 2005 ROTC graduates are all pinning on lieutenant colonel. You know, as of a couple weeks ago, I was a captain. You know, so it's not. I'm behind, if you will, as far as my age versus my peers. So if you look at retirement age and all that sort of stuff, it puts me in definitely a unique situation. However, the insights that I gleaned from the commercial aviation and civilian, more importantly, the civilian sector as a whole, has given me insights that I would not have gotten if I was purely military, and vice versa. I will eventually go back to the commercial sector. I have no doubt about it. You know, that's kind of where my roots are. Eventually, I'm going to be too old to be flying fighter jets, and I would, my neck already hurts. You know, at some point, it's going to be nice to, sit back on a 777 somewhere. So that's I'm going to go back. And one of the cool things is I now have the insight of the entire military background as well. So one of the unique things that my path has provided me is the ability to see both the commercial and civilian side of the house and the military side of the house. And it's provided some phenomenal opportunities, such as right now, I am using a lot of knowledge that I gathered from just experience in the civilian aviation sector, and through, like Riddle and my master's degree and the things I've been studying, that has really led to, looking at training programs in the military and what works and what doesn't work, because the military does things very differently than the airline sector is. And one of the things that I had to learn when I was going back through, I'm going through undergraduate pilot training. I showed up at the Air Force with 4,000 hours of flight time. My instructors that are teaching me have a couple hundred hours of flight time, right? So that's kind of where I was, right? Now that has a major shift in attitude, because the military does the same task, but differently a lot of times, right? So holding, for example, procedures for holding in the military is different than what is done in the commercial aviation sector. Neither is wrong, neither is incorrect. Both have the same result and outcome, but the way they do it is differently. So I had to completely unlearn some aspects of things to relearn other aspects. But I now have a full understanding of the different methods. So you will hear civilian traffic on the radio, and you'll hear military traffic on the same radio, and you'll hear misunderstandings where you realize one isn't understanding the other and the other's not. But since I've lived both sides of the coin, I'm able to sort of filter out, hey, this is actually what this person's thinking. So it's given me a unique perspective. Sorry, you're on mute again.
Yep,
There we go.
automatically there, so that's all good. We're getting some more questions, and are you ready to answer some more questions that are coming in from the field?
Yeah, fire away.
All right, very good. Michael asked, are you still on leave from Mesa Airlines, or did you resign when you went to active duty?
Do you work for Mesa? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I am still on active duty leave. Yes, so I've been very lucky. I still communicate with the company regularly, and I keep sending them my orders, and they are. I'm lucky enough that the company is willing to keep me on military leave.
I believe you're gaining valuable experience out there as well.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah. I can come back
that.
to the field at any point.
Very good. And then we have Jonathan mentioned, how long was the process of joining the Air Force? He just finished his master's degree, and OCS application is submitted, and he's currently waiting for a response from the board.
It depends, and that's the standard military answer. I waited a year and a half, so the turnaround could be quick, or it can be fairly lengthy. So you have to realize that the Air Force is going to select, there's 3 commissioning sources, right? So there's OTS, which is what I did. There is the Academy, and there's ROTC. ROTC is by far the largest commissioning source. The Academy is a very large commissioning source, and OTS is the smallest. And what you'll typically find is OTS will kind of show up in waves, and OTS kind of backfills a little bit of what the Academy and what ROTC does not fill. Now that doesn't mean that they're waiting to just start picking off from OTS. It just means that my experience was, and this was also 10 years ago, my experience was that I kind of waited in the queue until there was an opening for me. So it could take a little while. I've also heard of it taking less than that. So.
Very good. Thank you. So we have a question from a mom, and probably no different than your mom, who is steering you in a different direction. So this mom is asking, should I encourage my son to get a pilot's license if he is studying aerospace engineering?
That's another, it depends, right? So, if you have the resources to get a pilot's license, it depends on what you want to do with the license, right? So I will never encourage somebody to get a pilot's license for the sake of getting a pilot's license. Now, if you feel like it's going to help you in any way, then absolutely pursue it. But just realize that where you put your resources is kind of what are you going to get back for it, So some people get their pilot's license just for the pure joy of flying, and that's phenomenal. That's the reward that you're going to get for it. Some people do it as a profession, and that's the reward you're going to get for it. So really take a look at the big picture and say, okay, what do I want to do with my pilot's license? So if I'm going to go into engineering, is my pilot's license going to help me? Well, it depends. What kind of engineering are you going to go into? Now, I will say, if you go into engineering with a pilot's license, it does give you the unique perspective of not only knowing how to design something for pilots or something in aviation, but you'll also understand how to operate it from the user aspect. And those people are very sought after, knowing not only how it's designed, but also knowing how it operates. So you can really bridge the gap between the engineers and the operators. So again, it depends answer, but I would say if you have the ability to do it and it's something that interests you, then absolutely pursue it.
Very good. Okay, 2 questions in one. So the first question is, how did you get the name Thorny? But then I'm going to backtrack and say, what was your name when you were on the Golden Eagles flight team?
First I'm going to have to look at all of my name tags that I've got. I put out all my flight team name tags sitting out there. So when I left the team, my call sign was Splits, and for the reason that I was a prior gymnast, and I was an instructor at the YMCA where I met my wife and that sort of thing. So that was kind of my natural one. But the other one, we'll have to talk about over a beverage sometime. So, but I will say, if you watch the movie, the cult hit Super Troopers, might get you some insight into my call sign.
And if we all watch that, we all have to sign a non-disclosure of some sort.
You have to sign an NDA, of course.
This is where we learned it.
Yeah.
So we have 8 minutes to go before we close out on tonight, and this has been incredibly valuable. But I have another question for you that I think would be relevant. What did your team look for to bring you onto the Thunderbirds? What do you look for as a teammate? What brings, what are the qualifications? What's the mindset? What are you looking for when you bring somebody onto the team?
That's a great question because it's another it depends answer. It really depends on the person, the personality, and the talent. What are the things the team at the time is looking for? Obviously, the ability to do the performance has to be there, right? So that is the minimum, if you will, to it. We look at things such as prior flight records. We look at your flying performances. We do like the bro check where we ask, prior pilots who've flown with you. For a lot of folks who apply to the team, the Air Force really isn't that big, if you will. A lot of times when you've done a couple assignments, people know who you are. And if somebody doesn't know who you are, they probably know somebody who knows somebody who knows who you are. For example, there was I flew with one of the commanders at Nellis Air Force Base earlier on this week, and he's a Embry-Riddle graduate Prescott from I think 1999. So and he's a F-15E Strike Eagle guy. So we kind of all know each other. So some of the things that we're looking for is well-rounded person concept is definitely huge. We're looking for your background, because we want to have diversity on the team. The Air Force as a whole is just a slice of the civilian population. We have everything, right? So diversity is huge. So if every single person on the team was from the Air Force Academy and everybody did UPT at the same time and we're all 2010 graduates, there's what's going to happen? We're all going to have the same story to tell, and there's nothing unique about it. Something that I bring to the team is I have a unique background, a unique story, and something that's very different. If this was a alumni group from the Air Force Academy, I wouldn't be the one talking to you right now. It would be, Thunderbird 4, who's an Academy graduate. So those are the other things that we look for as well. Also, the position on the team is fairly high profile. So we also look for, again, a well-rounded person who can go out and represent the Air Force in the public eye. And not make a fool of themselves, I guess, for lack of better terms. So those are some of the things that we're looking for. But by far, the first and foremost, we look at your actual flying qualifications before we even begin to look at the other things.
And I might have time for one more question. Thank you on that.
Absolutely.
Demanding schedule, incredible family support. How do you handle stress and the fatigue factor of it? And then I do have to ask, can you still do the splits? But we'll finish that one later on. So, but how do you manage your stress level? Because for some, golf is not relaxing. I'm not sure how it is for you, but you said that's what you do. But how is it? How do you manage your stress and your fitness and your mental ability to do what you do?
That's a phenomenal question. All the jobs that we do is stressful. Every one of us that goes to work every day, we battle our own stresses within work, with coworkers or the job that we have to do, or sometimes you get saturated with the quantity of work that you have to do. That's no different for us. Absolutely no different at all. I've flown 50 or 60 different airplanes. And, even though it's an F-16, an airplane's an airplane. Eventually you're going to fly it enough where it can seem just not special anymore. So yeah, that's definitely there. It's an extraordinarily stressful job, just like many of you do. But you always have to go back to the core of yourself. What motivates you? In my case, what makes Thorny tick? Well, I'll tell you, I always lean back on three things. And first and foremost is my faith, then it's my family, and then it's my friends and my work environment. And they go in that order. So you have to make sure you prioritize what is important to you, because you know what? At the end of the day, the Air Force is always going to ask more out of you. Always. So that doesn't matter if they insert any company here. They will always ask more out of you. They will rarely say, "Nah, you're good. We don't need anything else from you. Go home." They'll always ask more. But at the end of the day, my family is there for me at the end of it. So when I eventually separate from the Air Force, or I retire from the Air Force, or whatever it happens to be, when the Air Force is gone, my family is there. So I have to always remember, as long as I am focusing on my faith and my family, then work will naturally follow. And I look at it in buckets. If you take a balance, buckets on a balance, if one bucket is really full, then the other one is going to be really empty for them to balance. So if my work bucket is very, very full, like I go on a deployment for 6 months, my family bucket is going to be very empty. So I have to make sure that I pay attention to my family bucket to bring them back in balance, which means I might have to neglect something in work. So you have to have a balanced concept, because if you don't, then before I know it, you can be a 4-star general, and that's not going to matter because my family won't be there. So you have to make sure you balance everything out. And that's my advice. That's how I deal with the stress of it.
Very good. Thank you. And you're not going to do the splits for us before we end tonight?
No, I would probably hurt myself, and I don't want to go to NIF for a long period of time. So,
well, we're at the closing minutes. Number one, are you going to walk across stage because you're about to finish your graduate degree? And so are you going to come back to campus and walk across stage, or will you be working that weekend? Do you know?
I don't know. There's a couple different things up in the air right now, obviously work and baby number 4 and all those sorts of things, but I would love to come back and do that. I still go back to Riddle Prescott somewhat often. And I get to go talk to the students that are there. I love being on the campus. I love interacting with the school. I love seeing the airplanes. If I can be out there, you bet I'll be out there. In fact, I've been wanting to go to Oktoberfest so bad, for the last couple of years, but I can't just because of the schedule. We're supposed to be on air shows right now. And this year I was thinking, oh, COVID, we're canceling a bunch of shows. Maybe I can make it to Oktoberfest. Well, I guess I'm here in a way.
You're here. Yeah.
I guess this is a good thing.
Yes, you made it. So on behalf of everybody, it's 8:59. Are there any other closing words that you would like to share with everybody tonight?
Yeah, Bill, thank you so much for having me out here. So I think to those of you, the students that are out there, the parents that are out there, this is the opportunities that you have in front of you are phenomenal. The aviation industry is growing leaps and bounds. I'm in the military, sure I'm an officer and all that sorts of things, but my passion is aviation. I implore you to find your passion and run with it. Find the thing that makes you tick and go with it, because if you do that, you will never work a day in your life, and you will love what you do so much that you can't imagine not doing that thing. And that's what I am very lucky and blessed to be able to do myself. To those graduates that are out there, and some of my friends I see on here as well, it's phenomenal being in this environment. And I will say to you, find folks who you can help mentor, and folks that you can help bring into this amazing field, because the next big thing that's out there, think about it, when we were in school, the big thing that was out there was like the GE90 engines or the 777 or something like that. When we get to the age when we are retiring and we are getting out of town, it's going to be up to these kids now. The next big thing is in their brain, and we don't even know what that is yet. So it's important that we invest in them now, because they're the ones who's going to be the future of aviation. And if you want to be a part of that future, it's really important that we invest in those kids now, because what they have to offer, we can only dream of. So those are my parting shots to everybody. Thank you so much for having me out here. It's really, it's an honor for me to be back here. For me to look back and to think that I'm able to sit here and talk to all of you. It's phenomenal. So thank you.
Thorny, thank you. It's been a wonderful 20-year run. For everybody out there, feel free to open up your cameras, because he did want to see the faces of the people he talked to. So thank you so much. It's great to be a friend. It's great to have you as an alumnus. And to everybody out there, thank you for being forever an Eagle. Thorny, we look forward to hearing from you again. We look forward to watching you cross the stage. And you're truly an Eagle to all of us. So an inspiration. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you at an air show hopefully next year, okay?
Thank you.